Hello, good afternoon. We are so excited to have you guys right here for a virtual dairy farm tour. We are at Middle Tennessee State University's dairy farm, which is an on-farm laboratory for students to get hands-on experience and to see what a dairy farm is actually like. So we're so excited to have you here. Today we have farmer Matthew Wade. He is director of on-farm laboratories. He's going to take us through his farm, talk to us about why farmers make the decisions they do, how they care for their cows, everything you might want to know about what happens on a dairy farm. And we are also so lucky to have Mia Syn joining us. She is a dietitian and on-air nutrition expert. She's going to be asking questions that consumers are asking about dairy foods and trying to help kind of answer some of those questions that we have. My name is Callie Yakubishin. I am going to be moderating this tour. I am a registered dietitian. I work on behalf of dairy farmers in the Southeast, and I'm just so excited to have you guys here today. This is the favorite part about my job. So please don't be shy. Ask lots of questions. If you're watching on Zoom, the way to do that is to ask your questions in the Q&A. We want to get to all your questions, so please don't be shy. Ask them. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce y'all to Matthew Wade and Mia Syn. I think we're starting in the milking parlor. I'll let them introduce themselves.
Okay, well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Matthew Wade,
and I'm the director of the MTSU Farm Laboratories, and welcome to the MTSU Dairy. And I'm joined by
I'm a registered dietitian based out of Charleston, South Carolina. I run my blog, nutritionbymia.com, Nutrition by Mia on Instagram, where I share healthy recipes and nutrition tips daily, as well as on local and national TV news and lifestyle programs across the country. I'm so excited to join you, Matthew. You are a wealth of knowledge. I had the pleasure of meeting you yesterday, and I'm excited for the viewers to learn all about dairy farming. So let's get started.
Yeah, great. Yeah, excited about today, excited about sharing all these things at our dairy farms with you guys today. We are starting in the parlor. Okay, this is I'm going to back up a little bit. This is a 8 parallel barn with a pit crew station. And so what that means basically by pit means that you just stand here and the cows come in here and you're able to milk right where you need to be, right at the udder. So that works really well. And basically every day, twice a day, our students milk the cows. They milk at 5:30 in the morning and 4:30 in the afternoon. They do a super job. There is a very strict pattern in which they milk the cows, and that helps control any disease that might spread from one cow to the other, or any issues we might have. So very strict protocol that they use in the barn keeps the cows healthy and in good shape and the milk in good quality. So basically what the cows do, they'll come up into the holding pen. We have a few curious ones in the back that want to see what we're doing, but they'll come in the holding pen, and then we'll open this gate. 8 cows will come in on this side. We'll open this gate and 8 will come in on this side, and then they'll turn and stand parallel to one another. And the student workers will come through and they'll clean the udder, put a pre-dip on, they'll strip the udder a little bit, wipe it off, and then they'll come through and put the milker on. It's a very simple process. Just push the button and it all starts up and they put it right on. And the neat thing is, once you put this milker on the cow, the computer kind of takes over. And so the computer reads how much milk the cow is giving. We have weigh scales here. And once the cow gets below about 1 pound of milk per minute, the computer says, hey, she's done. Okay, we're going to stop the process. And the computer will it'll actuate this chain, stop the suction, and actually pull the milker off very gently.
There is behind a dairy farm, and it really helps make it a more sustainable system. Yeah. You're able to track the cow's health based on their output. And tell me a little bit more about that. They wear like sort of a Fitbit, I believe.
Yeah, exactly. You know, these cows, there's a lot of technology in dairy farming right now, and the cows are wearing neck bracelets. Right. And on that is very much something that's similar to a Fitbit. And so when they come in, this monitor back here in the back actually reads all that information, downloads it immediately to the computer, and where it is available for us to look at. Oh, we have one here, and this is what the cows are wearing. Just fits very loose and very nicely. This is like the Fitbit parts, little computer chip inside there. Of course, identification numbers, and very fashionable blue and yellow. Everyone seems to like that. But it does, as they come in, this all the information downloads. And so what happens is that information goes to the computer and is available to our students, to our faculty, obviously to our managers here at the dairy, where we can keep up with information. And where that is important, when we add that to the information that comes from the milk and how much they're giving at any given day, we can put all that on the computer. It goes to the computer, then we can pull off any type of graph or diagram, anything we want. And here's where it's important. For instance, if we see activity go up and milk production come down, it may mean that we need to check for heat cycle, for breeding purposes. Or if we see activity and milk going down, maybe that cow's not feeling well and we need to go check her. So we can go in there after every milking, look at that information and attend to the health of the cow immediately. And those are just a few things. There's a lot of the things that this computer system analyzes and reads for us, and we can go through all those pages. And it's just a tool we can use. But on the flip side, since we're a university, it's also something, again, that students and faculty can use for research projects, for papers or whatever. You never know what students' ideas they'll have, what they may want to come up with. So
wonderful. Yeah. So one quick question: how much milk does one cow produce, like in one milking?
Yeah, well, it's pretty. We have two different breeds here. We have the Holstein and the Jersey. We have many Holsteins are given 100 pounds of milk a day, which is great. In two milkings, yeah, two milkings together. And then we have several of the Jerseys are given about 60 pounds a day. Now, across herd average, when you bring those together, we're over 60 pounds a day in across herd average. So not bad. And so, and we'll talk a little bit more about the components and that sort of thing in milk in a few minutes. But
yeah, let's move on to the parlor and check some of that out. Well, we're in the parlor now, but let's check out the storage room and see kind of where the milk goes once we leave the parlor.
Sure. Yeah, we'll go right in this door and
I had no idea before I'd been to a dairy farm how much technology that went into actually dairying. I really didn't realize. So you can see from that explanation that all those computers are a huge tool now when it comes to dairy farming.
Yeah, it is a really big deal to us. And there's actually hitting coming into the dairy operations in a great way. But we're in the tank room now, and a couple of things we want to talk about in here real quick. We want to talk about, we have a plate cooler, and so the milk goes through. There are several plates here, and there'll be when the milk comes through, there'll be raw warm milk on one side and cool water on the other of each of these plates going all the way across, and that helps cool the milk down, because that's a quality assurance issue. We want to get the milk cooled down as quickly as we can. And so once those pass by each other, then the raw milk goes over into the tank behind me, and we're just cooled down to about 36, 37 degrees, and it stays there until we pick it up. And a couple of things with that, the water that goes by this in this plate cooler actually will wind up going back into our dump tanks, which I didn't really point them out there, but we have two 900-gallon dump tanks within the parlor that help flush everything. So this water is recycled and it is used, part of our sustainability practices that we use. But on the tank as well, this tank has a chart recorder on it, and that recorder is made as a legal document so that the regulatory agency can come in, make sure our milk is at the proper temperature at all times. It also shows when this tank has been washed. And according to regulatory, the tank has to be washed every 72 hours. And so on that chart recorder, it gives us that information so that we can have that and show that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. So
yes, that's right. So I have a question. A lot of the consumers that I work with, a lot of my followers and TV viewers, they ask about antibiotics in milk, and they're concerned that, some milks are labeled antibiotic free, some aren't. And as a dietitian, I know that no milk contains antibiotics. That's just a labeling issue. But tell me how you ensure that on your farm.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, and you're correct. A lot of those things that say that on packaging are kind of a marketing thing, which is great. And that's fine. But for us, we also utilize about 25% of our milk in our own plant that we have on campus. So we process some of our milk, and we use the same protocols as the large plants do. And basically what that is is before any milk is unloaded at a plant, it is tested for antibiotics.
Right.
And so if there's any antibiotics or anything that may have gotten, it's dumped immediately.
Right.
It never enters the milk stream.
And in some cases, when the cows get sick, under the care of a veterinarian, they may require antibiotics, but they never make it into the milk supply for human consumption.
Exactly. Yeah. And we handle that a couple different ways. Work very close with our veterinarians, and we are very careful with any of those antibiotics that we do use, because we're going to take care of our cows. Okay, just like we're going to take care of our children, we're going to take care of our cows. And so what we do is, if those cows have been treated, they're marked in 3 different ways. Mm-hmm. We write it on the board. We have leg bands we put on them, and it also flashes on the computer screen. So students know. And those are the last cows in the milk line. We pull the hoses off. That milk is dumped immediately down the drain. And anything we use has a 72-hour withdrawal. So for 72 hours, we're dumping milk from those cows, and then we can test it for they actually enter back into the milk stream. Or we can actually milk those cows separately if we need to. So none of that milk enters into these lines, into this tank on the front end. Right. But it's also tested once it goes from here. So
yes, a lot of testing involved.
A lot of testing, a lot of regulatory.
Yes.
Thank you so much for that insight, Matt. And thank you for asking that question, Mia, because I know that is a big misconception that some milk contains antibiotic. And I really agree as a dietitian, a lot of that issue lies in the fact that it's not consistent across labeling, but I think it's reassuring for consumers to hear that across the board, it's illegal for milk to contain antibiotics. And there's huge implications for farmers if they did sell milk that contained antibiotics. So, I will never forget. Yeah, no, go ahead.
I totally agree with that, Callie. I always tell viewers and consumers that don't trust the front of the package typically, because there's a lot of gimmicky marketing terms. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's really important to know that no milk in the US will contain antibiotics.
Yeah. And I was just saying, I'll never forget my first dairy farm visit after working almost 4.5 years as a clinical dietitian. And it was certainly an eye-opening experience for me, and had me thinking about things I had never considered before, like the simple idea that without farmers, we have no food. And that while consumers care greatly about sustainability in the environment, which Matt already kind of started talking about those sustainability aspects with that water recycling, farmers do too. So their livelihood depends on ensuring they're being good stewards of the land and resources. So throughout our tour, we're going to continue to talk about the ways that dairy farmers specifically are practicing sustainability. And I hope that you're pleasantly surprised. So next we are now at, it looks like one of the pack barns. So I'm going to toss it back over to you guys.
Sure. Yeah, we're standing in front of the pack barn, and basically this is a place where the cows come and hang out between milkings. And so it's a pretty cool deal. I've turned the fans off for a few minutes so you guys can hear me okay. And we can hear you, but normally the fans are going, and this is just where they can come out and be a cow. Okay. And it's kind of a neat thing that we see here, because, something we always say is scientifically proven fact that happy cows give more milk, right? And how do we know that they're happy? Well, the one thing we look at is look how the cows are dispersed across the pack barn. They're not all grouped together. They're not all trying to get out or anything. They're just perfectly content where they are. You'll see several just lying down and they're chewing their cud, which is, as gross as it may sound, the regurgitated feed stuff. That's what cows do, and here they can come and they've got plenty of fresh water. They've got all the feed they can eat, as you can see. And again, they can just go wherever they want to and do whatever they want to do. So.
And I love that happy cows produce more milk. It's a more sustainable system when you have to take care of less cows and they're producing more milk. So I love telling consumers that these are, taking care of the well-being of cows is so important as a dairy farmer, and something that consumers should be able to know. And so one question I have is that you have different types of cow breeds here. So tell me, I know they produce different types of milk in terms of protein, fat, output. So let me know a little bit about that.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of people ask us why we have a two breed herd.
Yes.
Well, part of it is some of the guys in position 4, they like jerseys, so we have a few jerseys mixed in, but it's now about a 50-50 herd, and that helps us actually in the milk plant because the Jerseys give us more butter fat. And butter fat is very important to what we're doing with our cream products, or if you're making cheeses, or if you're making ice cream base or any of that sort of thing, that butter fat is very important. And Jerseys will give a higher percentage of that. We have a lot of Holsteins now that are giving pretty good amount, but the Jerseys are giving more. And so for the Jersey cow, you're looking at the components. You're looking at those proteins, those butter fats, solids, non-fat, those things that you may use in a plant for other products. And so that's very beneficial to us. But then again, as a dairy farmer, we need the volume because we're still needing to sell. We sell 75% of our milk on the raw market. And so we still need the volume. That's where the Holstein comes in. They're giving several of them, like I said, giving 100 pounds a day. And so that really helps get that out the door and kind of get our check. And milk is priced per 100 weight, so that's why we say 100 pounds or 60 pounds a day on the Jerseys, and that's why we talk in those terms. But the healthy cows, you talk about that, we want to see them loafing about, enjoying themselves, chewing their cud, eating feed, doing these things. Those are all just visual signs that they are healthy and they're in good order. And these are our lifeblood, and we've got to take care of them like this. They've got to be healthy and happy. A big part of that is the feed, you see. And this is kind of a neat thing. I'm gonna grab some of this real quick. This is pretty cool stuff. This is our total mix ration. We use a TMR system. A lot of other dairies do the same. And I'll try not to get this all over everyone. But as you pick through here, you can see the different things we use. That's a little bit of the high moisture hay that we use. You pick through, you see little bits and pieces of corn. And you see there's some corn, and there's some soybean and cottonseed hull in here. There's some more that's some of the wheat high moisture hay. You can tell by the head that one looks like. There's corn silage in here. We did a good job chopping it up. Let's see, there's part of the corn stalk, and it's hard to see, but it is. So many different components to this. It makes a great ration for these guys.
I like that they have an open buffet there. All the time, it looks like they always have food available to them.
I mean, it is, and part of that is our students will come up twice a day, every day, and push that back up for them.
Okay.
So that it's right in front of them all the time. And you see them kind of digging around. Cows are kind of like kids. They want the good stuff first. So they're digging around, finding the corn, the soybeans, and all that. They'll eat the hay later, just like a bunch of kids. So
what is amazing is that this is food that humans can't digest and consume. So cows are able to eat this food that typically, they're not taking away from human food, and convert it into this nutrient dense beverage. Milk has 13 essential nutrients, vitamin D, calcium, these nutrients that a lot of Americans fall short on. And so it just kind of contributes to what a sustainable system it is.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And very quickly, I'm gonna jump right into some of our sustainable practice here. This pack barn is a natural composting operation, and we keep adding bedding to it as it needs to be dried down a little bit. We turn it twice a day, every day. And tomorrow afternoon, we're going to start pulling all this out, and it's actually going to go on the fields behind us for our corn silage fields. So we're going to use that for fertilizer. So we'll be doing that very quickly as well. So
that. Yeah, that'd be cool. Yeah, that's amazing.
Let's move on to show where the food is housed. I think we're going to go down to the commodity shed next. On our way there, Matt, we did have one question from the audience that I thought was pertinent to talk about now, and that's how many cows you have on the farm.
Oh yeah, we have about 103 dairy cows, but that includes calves all the way up to our milking herd. We're milking about 60 cows right now. And of course, that's a moving number. So, we're drying some off, new ones are coming in all the time, but it's about 60 at this moment.
Okay. Yeah, I know that in kind of the grand scheme of things, that's a pretty small farm, right?
It is. A lot of the farms in Tennessee, they're milking in that 200 to 300 cow mark. We have some farms that are milking 1,300 cows. So, in the dairy business, you really kind of need to do more. You need to milk more cows to really make a little more money to make that work out. So it helps to have a few more these days. Of course, and our mission here is to train and to teach. And so that's kind of what we're doing. That's why we're only milking about 60. If this was my personal farm, we'd probably be at that 300 cow mark. So
well, Well, I think
So
that, this is a good time to bring up that even regardless of the size of farm, most of our dairy farms are actually family-owned farms. So I think this is a great time to kind of talk about this misconception that a big farm means that it is, they're having different farm practice than what we're seeing today, but that's really not the case. It really just has to do with sometimes having more cows is more lucrative for, it's going
it
to make it a
is.
more profitable business model. So I appreciate you bringing up that topic. So we're now at the
Yeah.
commodity shed.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say that we talked a little bit about the total mixed ration. I know that Mia talked about how we are converting a lot of these foods that humans can consume into nutritious product like milk. But maybe we can also talk about some of those individual ingredients, where they come from, like are those byproducts and things like that while we're at the commodity shed.
Sure, absolutely. Not sure what you guys can see, but we're standing in front of our commodity shed, and this is kind of where we put our bulk feeds and where we kind of mix our ration. As I tell the first graders that we tour, this is kind of like our sugar and milk and eggs that you'd make brownies with, but we're doing it with corn and wheat and other things. And we use a recipe like they do, and our mixer is a huge mixer mixed to a tractor. Same thing though. But we start off with some corn. Now the corn is grown on the property, and we actually will let that go, to what we call just dry corn, seed corn, and we'll harvest that in the fall and put that in grain bins we have at the bottom of the hill. And right next to it, we have some high moisture hay. And the high moisture hay, the reason we do that, and it also lends itself to the corn silage, we put it up high moisture because we wrap it in these huge plastic bags. And then what it can do is it goes through kind of a fermenting process or an in-sealing, actually, to get a little more technical with it, process. And all that does is takes that plant, because the cow, again, like you're saying, utilizes all of that plant that we couldn't. And so what that does helps break that plant down a little further to release the starches. So in its basic form, for a dairy cow, starches equal energy, energy equals milk. Very simply put.
Right. And you have a nutritionist that kind of helps formulate what the cows are eating. And does that change like with the seasons, or based on how much milk they're producing? And I remember yesterday you said it has a direct impact on how much milk they produce,
Absolutely.
their nutrition.
Yeah, absolutely. A few years ago, we do work with nutritionists that they do a fabulous job for us. A few years ago, we were just using high moisture hay in our ration, not corn silage. And we couldn't, our health was kind of up and down a little bit. We weren't getting the milk that we wanted, but we had a lot of variation in the feed. And so every new row of hay we get into, we'd have it tested, and we had to change the recipe all the time, continue to change it. So we made the decision to go to corn silage, and that's a much more consistent product. And almost immediately it changed the health, the feet and legs, the reproductive issues, and immediately gave 9 to 10 pounds of extra milk almost immediately. So that consistency and quality and consistency in the feed, just like you and I, made a huge difference in these cows, and it was very, very evident.
Do the cows eat the same food, or are there some that get a different diet? And how often are they fed?
Sure. We actually mix this ration once a day. And because it takes the cows about 24 hours to eat all of it. And now, of course, we start talking about baby calves, start talking about our heifers we're growing. Yeah, that changes. We do have different rations for them because their needs are different at different ages and different stages of life. And as far as the dairy cows, they're all kind of getting the same ration. We do, because we have 2 different breeds and we're kind of going for a certain poundage of milk, that we kind of hit a middle of the road mark on our ration as to what we're looking for. And as you can see, we're going through with the high moisture hay, but we also, to help that balancing of that ration that we're kind of talking about, we have a balancing feed that we purchase, and our nutritionist helps formulate that feed. And it's got cottonseed hulls in it, and it's got soybeans, and it's got all the vitamins and minerals they need. It's got some other things in it, all just feed based, grain based. And we'll use that. We'll test our corn, we test our high moisture hay, test our corn silage, and kind of see where it's at quality wise. Then we use that to help balance the ration to get the amount of milk we want. And you said something about the different seasons. Yeah, sometimes it does. Sometimes in the wintertime they need a little more energy, We might might mix the ration a little differently to get the little higher energy we need to get them through those cold spells and produce the milk they need to. So
just every now and then, just based on what's going on with the cows.
Yeah, we have a great relationship with our nutritionist.
Oh, great. We love to hear that.
It works really well. So.
Well, we're going to kind of wrap up and head to our cutest stop on the tour. But I will never not think it is so cool to hear about all the ways that dairy cows can recycle and reuse byproducts. Matt mentioned that there's cottonseed hull in that feed that we're feeding the cows. That's byproduct from if you're wearing a t-shirt, otherwise that may have ended up in the landfill. So it's really cool to hear how dairy cows can recycle that. I know that Mia already mentioned it, but with 13 essential nutrients in every cup, including 3 nutrients identified in the dietary guidelines as being underconsumed by Americans, dairy cows play a big role in providing crucial nutrients to the American diet. But before they can become dairy cows that produce milk, they start out as little calves. So we know that animal care is a big priority for consumers, as it is for dairy farmers. And that begins with what the life of a calf looks like. So on this farm, once the calves graduate from the calving pen, which where you can kind of see that big white hoop barn there, they actually are kept at a separate location on farm, but we're going to show you some footage that we shot yesterday afternoon, so you can see what it looks like for those calves. And I'm going to turn it over to Matt so he can talk about what those first few weeks of life look like, and take it away.
Sure, absolutely. Basically, for a dairy cow, when she gets ready to calve, we bring her up to what we call the close-up lot, where we keep an eye on her. And then when we know she's within 2 or 3 days of calving, we'll move her over into our calving barn, which is behind me here. And just to make sure if she has any trouble or anything, we can help her. We take great care in calving time. So when a calf is born, it stays on the cow about 24 hours so that she can get that colostrum, which is that high dose of vitamins and minerals and helps build the immune. Yeah, exactly. And so, and then after 24 hours, we pull her off. The heifer calves will go down to the bottom of the hill where we have a calf barn. And that's, of course, that's where all the kids want to go. And they love seeing the calves. But the calves will stay in the calf barn in hutches, individual hutches. So we do that so that we can kind of help control their health as well. So if one gets sick, it doesn't pass it through them all because it'll happen very quickly. And so we don't want that. So we keep them individual until they're about 8 or 9 weeks old. And in that time, the rumen is developing, which is the big stomach basically in the cow. These girls, it's probably about the size of a 55-gallon drum. But in a calf, it's developing where they can eat hay and grain and drink water and those sort of things. And so at the end of that 8 or 9 weeks, we see that they're eating the grain, they're eating the hay, they're enjoying that. Then we'll move them out to a small pen together. And again, feed them a grower ration. We talked about the rations being different and the recipe more or less being different. And so something helped their bodies grow. And then after about 3 or 4 months, they start going out on the pasture. And then until they're about 14 to 16 months old, they're just out on pasture. They get supplements, they get grain. Of course, there's fresh water for them at free choice, and they're just living life, growing and enjoying it. And so once they get about 14 to 16 months old, we bring them back up to another close-up lot. And because we breed all the cows through artificial insemination, and so we watch them for signs of heat and prepare for that breeding process, because we'd like to have them calve close to 2 years old, maybe just a little over, but close to 2. And then again, the process starts all over. They get ready to calve, they come to the close-up lot, and it just starts all over again. Now, once a cow's calved, the cow, the mother, now she, after that 24-hour period, she actually enters the milk line. She'll go into the parlor. She'll get a nice fancy necklace, with all the Fitbit and everything on it. And so she'll enter the line, but she still is producing colostrum. And so we'll actually pull that milk off for 72 hours and dump that milk. Nothing wrong with the colostrum. It would just make the milk a little different color than what we're used to, and maybe a little different taste, just a little bit. So we just go ahead and dump that.
Market for that have you ever do you guys do anything with the colostrum? I'm curious. Yeah, because it is so nutritious.
The guys down in Australia and New Zealand,
okay,
I know this firsthand. I had a friend live in New Zealand for about a year. They actually drink that as a kind of a nutritional,
I believe it,
power drink.
Okay, yeah.
I'm not sure I'm going to do that, but yeah, it's kind of an oddity down there that they enjoy.
Okay, well, it works for them.
It does. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's kind of pretty neat thing.
So how many calves does each cow have, like in a lifetime
Oh,
on your
wow.
farm?
Generally, we're talking about a calf a year.
Okay.
And which leads us to the next question. How long do the cows live? What is their average lifespan? And average for the US is about 9 or 10 years. It just is. Same thing. Beef cows are pretty close to that as well. It's just a cow. Our cows, the oldest one we have is 11 or 12 now. So our cows tend to live. They have a little longer life expectancy. They're so happy, and we take good care of them. So
great.
And what about, I know that you kind of addressed it, but maybe if we could talk a little bit more about what is the benefit to separating the calves from the mom after they're born? I know that that's a big question that consumers have, and I always was interested to hear about it from dairy farmers when I first started visiting.
It's a good
farms.
question.
Yeah, absolutely. We do it for several different reasons. One, we obviously need to get as much milk from the cows as we can. I mean, that's where our money is in the milk. And so we'll go ahead and pull the calves off and raise them on, we use a milk replacer product. Some folks will use actual milk, whatever you want to do there. But for us, it allows us to control the calves. It also helps us to keep very close eye on their health, but it also helps us get the cow into the milking line a little faster. And so that it works really well for dairy farmers, works really well for us. And of course, we're taking great care of both these in both situations, and it works really well. And that's their purpose. Their purpose is to provide milk for all of us. And so, and they do a good job of it, and we take care of them and their calves, and it just works very well that way.
Yeah, you put so much attention and care into all your cows, and especially the calves. They're the future of the farm, and yeah, I just think that's incredible. And I wish we could see them because they're so cute.
Yeah.
I know. So
It's
yeah,
true.
we're getting actually lots of questions that are going to be great for this, our final stop on the tour, which is going to be, we're going to talk about where that milk goes once it leaves those milk storage tanks. So where it goes when it gets to the processing center. And so we're kind of coming full circle here. And so I'm going to actually start out with one of the questions that we've gotten. And one is, well, actually, we have a question about the calves that we should talk about. And I think you talked about this, but can the calves not drink the colostrum is one of the questions that we had.
Oh, they do. They do.
They
That
do.
first 24 hours, they stay on the cow for that purpose. And they drink
Okay.
colostrum for that first 24 hours. And honestly, if we feel like a calf needs more, we actually milk some of that out of the cow and we freeze it so that we can bring it back out and thaw it if we need to give more to a calf for whatever reason. Rarely have to do that unless we have issues in calving or issues with a cow. Rarely have to do that, but we do keep that. But they drink colostrum for that first 24 hours, and they have to.
Mm-hmm.
It is essential. Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, well, perfect. So let's kind of move now, like I said, to the processing. I just want to catch that last question and tell us a little bit about kind of what happens at the processing center. I always thought of milk on the dairy farm, and then I never thought about what happened to it afterwards, right? Because it's raw milk when it's leaving the farm. So talk to us about what happens at the processing center.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really neat thing about what we do here at the university. We do have our own processing plant on campus. Matter of fact, I was in there this morning. I had a hairnet on and rubber boots, and we were running whole white milk through bottling it. So it's a pretty cool deal. But what happens basically, of course, the milk comes in, the tanker comes out and picks it up. Our students do the same process for big plants too. We come out, pick the milk up, we take it into the plant. Again, where it is tested for antibiotics. Does not a drop unloads till we test that. Once we get the all clear, we hook it up and it runs into our holding tanks, in through our pasteurizer, which all the pasteurizer ours is an HTST system, which is a high temperature short time system. And so basically the milk runs through there at about 180 degrees for 21 seconds. And that just kills any potential bad bugs is the way we describe it, bad bacteria, anything that might be harmful, and doesn't change the color, taste, or anything like that. And then it runs through the homogenizers there as well. And what the homogenizer does, basically, it just breaks up the fat globules so that when you pick up that milk out of the cooler at the store, all the fat is to stay suspended in it. Otherwise, we'd have cream line milk if we didn't use that. If you ever see cream line milk, That's just milk that's not gone through a homogenizer. So all that, the
Okay,
butterfat,
races. Got it. Okay, that's
it rises
interesting.
to the top.
Yeah, yeah.
So, yeah.
Right. Yeah. I know consumers ask me that don't drink milk. They're either think they're lactose intolerant or and whatnot. But I like to remind them that all lactose-free milk and A2 milk, that's all real dairy milk. You're getting those 13 essential nutrients. So the dietary guidelines recommends that we consume 3 cups of dairy each day for healthy adults. And even if you don't like drinking a glass of milk, you can add it to your cereals, smoothies, even savory dishes like soups. So what's your favorite way to use milk?
I just like to drink it.
You just like it by the glass.
I do. I just like to drink it. I'm good with that. It's a great question. Though. It's a great point you brought up about the lactose intolerant. I get that.
Yes.
We sell at a farmer's market as well.
Right.
And so we get a lot of those questions there. And so I ask people, are you sure you're lactose intolerant? Maybe you need to try the A2 milk. And the A2 they do a lot better. And the A2 basically is the proteins inside. You got A1, you got A2. So they might try that and see if that might be a way they can get back into drinking milk.
Some people use that you can reap those incredible benefits from real dairy. And, there's so many great options on the market, lactose free and the A2. Yeah. So I think that's important for consumers to know.
It is. Yeah. Absolutely. A lot of options there, a lot of ways to help dairy farmers, a lot of ways to drink milk. And just remember, when you're drinking milk, you're helping a dairy farmer, no matter what.
Yeah. You work so hard. Yeah. You're so passionate about what you do.
It's a big deal. So,
yeah. I'll let you go ahead, Matt, and then I have a question for you.
Okay. No, I was just going to say that the other end of the process, when the milk goes through the processing plant, it gets bottled. We deliver it. We take it to the cafeterias on campus in bags, and then we deliver for ourselves about 25 different locations around Murfreesboro, and then of course to the farmers market. So we have that. We kind of a neat thing. We're able to train our students from gathering the forages, milking the cows, to processing and actually interacting with the consumer. So that's a very important thing, again, for our mission as university-led dairy farm. So
fun experience that they get to.
It absolutely is. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm glad that we kind of were able to bring up talking about the lactose-free milk. I know that one of our questions was kind of asking about, how are we combating milk alternatives? And it's not really that we're combating milk alternatives. It's just that we're trying to educate people. That's really my role, is educate people that dairy is a part of the dietary guidelines for a reason, because it provides essential nutrients. And I love talking about lactose-free products like lactose-free milk, or options like teas or fermented yogurt, because there's still ways to consume dairy foods, even if you do have lactose intolerance. So I think that was a great thing to bring up. And so we are going to kind of finish out our tour, but I know that you can see I'm here with the cows on the other side. They're having their little buffet. One thing that people are really concerned about when it comes to their food, and rightfully so, is just kind of what kind of environmental footprint does that food have. And we talked a lot about the sustainability practices here on dairy farms, and it's going to look different from farm to farm. So there's some things that even more, sustainability practice you might see on other farms, like methane digesters, things like that. But specifically dairy currently contributes about less than 2% of the greenhouse gases in the US. And they have a goal to be carbon neutral or better by 2050. So it's not that dairy farmers are saying, we don't contribute that much, we're going to stop there. We actually have a goal to be carbon neutral or better by 2050. So I want to thank Matt for the insight he provided on the farm, and Mia for the great questions and insight as an RD. Overall, this has just been a really great experience, and to shine some light on what actually happens on a dairy farm, and help kind of navigate those knowledge gaps that we might have about dairy farming. So we're going to answer one more question. So my last question for you, Matt, is what do you wish people knew about being a dairy farmer?
Yeah, I just want people to understand how much the dairy farmers care about their cows and the land and the legacy that they pass on to their children or to some of their grandkids, whoever it may be. The dairy farmers are passionate about what they do. They care about the environment because the environment takes care of them. They care about the cows because the cows take care of them. And they are very concerned about the future of our planet, of the land, and because they want this thing to keep going. They love providing for folks all these great milk products, whatever it may be, and they really want to keep doing what they do. Most dairy farmers I talk to, if they don't want to go out of business, they want to keep going. They'll find new innovative ways to continue what they're doing and make sure it's something that's of great quality and safe and nutritional and all those things. So dairy farmers, they're really trying and doing their best to make sure they have that product available to everyone. So.
Okay, and then Mia, I love that answer. I hear that your answer from most dairy farmers is really they just want people to realize, how much how much they care about the cows and the work that they're doing. And I always get that sentiment. It always comes across so strong with every dairy farmer that I've met. So my last question to you, Mia, is what was your biggest takeaway from the farm?
As a dietitian, I look at dairy foods from a nutrition perspective. I'm like, this is one of the most nutrient dense foods, and I recommend it to all consumers. But just seeing the behind the scenes of how dairy foods are produced, and meeting Matthew has just been like such a light and such a great experience, because you're so passionate about what you do. And I have been to another dairy farm before, and those farmers were just as passionate. You guys really put so much care into taking care of these animals, and I think that's so important for people to see that there's dairy foods are so nutritious, so good for us, but they're being produced in a sustainable way with people that really care about what they're doing, really put their heart into it. So thank you so much for letting me interview Matthew and be here today. Thank you, Callie. This has been such a great experience, and I hope that the viewers learned a lot.
Yes. I want to thank you both as well. Not as many people have connections to agriculture anymore. And so taking away that kind of mystery behind how our farm is made is the reason why we do these tours. So if you have questions about agriculture, you're on the fence, you're not sure, talk to a farmer. Go on a virtual farm tour if you can't get out there, because I promise you're going to feel better after you talk to them. So we have a little dairy toast here. We've got chocolate milk straight from our dairy cows here.
I'm so excited.
Thank you again. Remember, if you're at home, we have resources on the dairylines.com. We have other virtual farm tours from other farms, because not all farms are the same. And so go to dairylines.com for any other information you want to know about dairy and dairy nutrition. We can talk about everything today, but if you want to know about specific, the role that dairy plays in different health topics, that's where you can find that information. So thank you. Remember, at the end of this tour, there's going to be a post survey that pops up, and we'd love to hear from you. Any feedback, really, it helps us try to make sure that we're covering all the topics you guys want to hear in these tours. So that's it. Have a dairy good day.
I don't know.
And we are clear.